let's get to it. First, National Post is reporting Ottawa to double the carbon price rebate for rural Canadians. So Justin Trudeau is having a hard time in the polls. He is tanking in Atlantic Canada, hence action on heating oil just before the heating oil season. And also, rural Canadians get this double the rebate. And fundamentally, if what they said about the carbon tax was true, then all of this wouldn't be necessary. We'll get there in just a minute. Here's the announcement on the pause on heating oil from Justin Trudeau. Here we go.
Today, we are announcing a 3-year pause on the federal pollution price on heating oil so that we can give everyone the time and ability to switch to heat pumps. Now, switching to an electric heat pump from oil heating, which is very vulnerable to volatile global market prices, can save people a lot of money. In fact, it can mean as much as thousands of dollars a year less spent on energy bills. So the second part of our announcement today is that, piloting in the Atlantic, we're working with provinces to install a free heat pump for people who are making at or below median household income.
These heat pumps are so good, we'll pay you to put them in. Listen, honestly, $250.
And to encourage people to sign up for the change, we're providing a $250 incentive payment. That's money in your pocket right now. Yeah, you didn't know about that one, guys.
So it is one of those things where it signals an idea that these liberals have not been straight with us. Here's Zoltan, and he says, this temporary relief on heating oil vote buying scheme doesn't make any sense according to the carbon tax own logic. As the supposedly revenue neutral tax gives back more money than it takes for 8 out of 10 families, this action would do nothing to help affordability. And this is Chrystia Freeland saying, our government is delivering relief to Atlantic Canadians, rural Canadians, and people across the country who use home heating oil. This will make life more affordable for people across Canada today while we fight climate change at the same time. So they want you to migrate to a heat pump and use electricity. The heat pumps don't work in Canada. The heat pumps barely work in the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom doesn't get nearly as cold. -10 is a very, very cold day in England, as far as I understand it. So -30, does the heat pump keep up? Do you have to like cordon off half of your living room and like just heat the living room to stay warm? That's not how Canada used to be. Here's Mark, and he's clipping from this news article from the Post Millennial. Of the total energy consumed by Canadian households in 2019, natural gas accounted for 53%, electricity for 43.9%, and heating oil for 2.7%, similar to the energy consumption patterns in 2015. So there's no real reason to think that that would be any different now. And again, this is from 2021, and heating oil as a share of residential primary heating in 2021, the leading provinces by volume are PEI, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Quebec, then Ontario, and BC. And Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta don't register on the list at all. So, right, heat or vote buying in Atlantic provinces confirmed, I think. Scott Moe is responding to this announcement, and he says, after years of telling us that most households are getting more money back from the carbon tax than they pay, Trudeau today announces a 3-year pause of his carbon tax on home heating oil to make life more affordable. So isn't that an admission that the Trudeau carbon tax is making life a lot less affordable? And of course, it doesn't do much for Saskatchewan. The carbon tax is still being fully applied to natural gas, and over 90% of Saskatchewan households are heated with natural gas. Just acts the tax on everyone and everything. Yes. Good job, Scott Moe. I agree. Danielle Smith weighs in, the premier. So Scott Moe is the premier of Saskatchewan. Danielle Smith is the premier of Alberta. And she says, although I congratulate Atlantic Canadians for a well-deserved break from the carbon tax on home heating oil, I'm frankly disturbed that same break will not be extended to Albertans and those from Saskatchewan and elsewhere in Canada who heat their homes with natural gas. Question for the Liberal government. Are we not Canadians too? What a terrible message this sends about how dysfunctional and divisive Ottawa has become. Yeah. Doug Ford weighs in, the Premier of Ontario. He says, while this is a step in the right direction, the vast majority of people in Ontario heat their homes and businesses with natural gas and will still have to pay the carbon tax. The carbon tax is making life more expensive for everyone in every part of the country. I'm urging the Prime Minister to do what's right and eliminate the tax altogether. And so everybody and their dog latched on to the pause in the carbon tax, the affordability explanation, and it totally undermined Justin Trudeau's messaging. It totally destroys all the messaging he did up till now. Oh, it's affordable for most people. It's more affordable, more money back in your pockets. He was lying, and he knew he was lying. And now the polls have proven that nobody's going to vote for a liar who takes all their money. And so he repealed the tax, right, for 3 years, sure, to get heat pumps. But there's more to it, sure. But I hope Justin Trudeau will be gone before that 3 years is up. But this is the first crack in this. This is the first honest crack in this. And if it continues, if he has to abandon the carbon tax, then he's done. Well, I think, right? Like then that's signaling a drastic shift in people's tolerance for Justin Trudeau's nonsense. And so that would be good. The fact that everybody's jumping on this and jumping on that first part saying this undermines everything you've said, that's good. I think that that's a good thing. I just think that the fact that the second part of it is in order to get people heat pumps will be jumped on by the left to say the right is misinterpreting, the right doesn't understand, an incentive, blah, 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 blah. And they're not going to talk about how it undermines Justin Trudeau's credibility, but they're going to focus on the left ignoring the fact that it's a 3-year pause to get heat pumps, right? So I'm just trying to be fulsome in telling you the whole story. October 26th, the NDP are responding too. So we've seen a response from premiers who aren't, or who are left out of this carbon tax pause, right? And they're not happy, which is understandable. And the NDP also weigh in on this. October 26th, this is NDP federal level. New Democrats respond to Liberal announcement on home heating fuel. NDP environment critic Laura Collins and Charlie Angus made the following statement on pausing the carbon tax on home heating. For the last 2 years, the rising cost of living has been devastating for Canadian families struggling to pay for their mortgages, groceries, and home heating fuel. While the announcement today is long overdue reprieve for families in the Atlantic, New Democrats would like to see relief provided to the families in other parts of the country who are struggling to make ends meet. The Liberals seem to be hand-picking who they help based on their own political interests, leaving families in Northern Ontario, Alberta, and other parts of the country behind. For months, the NDP has been urging the Liberals to drop the GST on home heating fuel to give hardworking Canadians a break on their bills. We also want to see programs like the one today for low-income families to get access to heat pumps expanded. Oh, there you go. The heat pumps are mentioned. Instead of looking out for people over the last 8 years, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have been letting rich oil and gas CEOs off the hook by giving them the carbon tax exemptions, all while they offload the costs onto the Canadians who are desperately trying to keep up. The CEOs have to be the bad guy. So that's nothing surprising to me, but it's very, very funny when the rhetoric, like at a certain point, like I agree with the NDP, right? And all of the premiers across the West, right? Ontario and Western, I agree with all of them as well. And that's kind of strange to have all those conservative premiers agree with the NDP, right? And then the NDP comes out and blames greedy CEOs. It's funny. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was, the quality of a product if they're paying you to install it. It seems like the people who live in Atlantic Canada have solved the problem in the best way, most efficient way for them. And if you come in trying to sell a fancy monorail and they don't want to be swindled, and now you're saying, if you install the monorail, I'm going to give you $250 plus, a monorail pass. Like, it seems using your tax dollars to incentivize an upfront cash payment to migrate to this flashy, fancy, new climate changey technology, disingenuous. It fires red flags up for me left and right. I'm like, why? If that product was so good, it'd be mass adopted. If that product did what people were promising, what it promised, if it was as reliable and great and solved the problem better than an oil furnace, then people would adopt it. Very quickly they'd adopt it. They would just be like, bam, this is a product I need because it's better than the one I've got, right? It's like a phone or a car, right? If you've got power windows, do you remember having to roll windows up? I remember, I always liked rolling down the window. Roll down the windows, right? What does that mean now? Push the button and engage the windows to be down. But if you had a car with windows that you had to manually roll and somebody was like, check this out, and you're like, I need to have that, right? That's not happening with heat pumps. Nobody's saying, do you want these roll down windows? I'll incentivize you buying the roll down windows for $250. The push down roll down windows. I still roll down the windows. Roll down the windows, kids. The food professor is responding to this as well. He says, Trudeau announces a pause on carbon tax from home heating fuel. Great. Now can we talk about our food supply chain? The tax is punitive. The tax does nothing to help anybody, and it's bad. It's bad for everybody. It's bad for everything. And so is this Liberal government. And I think Kevin is also responding. All the Liberals are getting in on this. Seamus O'Regan's announcing this. Newfoundland and Labrador will get money back in federal rebates starting this July. Ooh, more money. This is from 22, though. This is from November 22. But Kevin's responding. He says, in a massively embarrassing climb down, the Trudeau Liberals have realized Canadians are not getting back more in carbon price rebates than they pay in carbon tax and have to adjust course. The Pierre Poilievre effect is changing Canada for the better. I don't know if it's Poilievre. I think it's the fact that everybody's abandoning the Liberal Party for, yes, the Conservatives at this point in time, if you look at the polls. And it seems that the Liberals understand the reason for that is this carbon tax, carbon scheme thing that they've rolled out is not very popular. We've already talked about Chrystia Freeland's tweet here. It's in another tweet. This was an excellent discussion from Danielle Smith. She gets into an argument with somebody in the audience who wants her to roll out nuclear. And she says, do you think that I can roll out nuclear in a province that's never had nuclear in 12 years? That's not realistic. And then he says, what about batteries? And she absolutely torches him on batteries. It's worth watching just to understand the cost of running batteries for backup for a grid. It's not practical. You will have people freezing in the dark. It would be a calamity. It would be worse than electric cars in a snowstorm trapped on a freeway. Here we go.
C began in 1954. Science C began in 1954. Fine. Do you think I can get? I can get an equivalent amount of nuclear rolled out in 12 years? Do you think I could do that in an environment that we've never had nuclear before?
I don't want to interrupt the two of you.
What do you know?
And I get.
What do you know that my industry experts don't know about?
Yeah.
Well, and what do I do when there's no sun and there's no wind? Batteries. Let's talk about batteries,
Danielle,
because I've talked to somebody. I want to talk about batteries for a minute, because I know that everybody thinks that this economy is going to be operated on wind and solar and battery power, and it cannot. There is no industrialized economy in the world operating that way, because they need base load. And I'll tell you what I know about batteries, because I talked to somebody who was thinking of investing in it on a 200 megawatt plant. $1 million to be able to get each megawatt stored. That's $200 million for his plant alone, and he would get 1 hour of storage. So if you want me to have 12,000 megawatts of storage, that's $12 billion for 1 hour of storage, $24 billion for 2 hours of storage, $36 billion for 3 hours of storage. And there are long stretches in winter where we can go weeks without wind or solar. That is the reason why we need legitimate, real solutions that rely on base load power rather than fantasy thinking. And I am not going to engage in fantasy thinking and say something is possible when I know that my principal job...
I think we need to stop.
My principal job is to have a reliable energy grid. That's what I'm trying to do.
The guy who's moderating this was desperately trying to stop Danielle Smith from torching this guy in the audience, but he failed, which is good. And it's a testament to Danielle Smith's ability to press on and answer the question that she wanted to answer. It's good for her that she did that, in my opinion. I'm glad that she pressed on and didn't get waylaid by the host and made her point, because the point is well made. The cost is prohibitive. It's so prohibitive that it's laughable if you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. If you say, in order to do this, it's going to cost us billions and billions of dollars, we wouldn't be able to send anything to Ukraine. And then that's it. The politicians would be done. Nothing to Ukraine? Oh, well, we can't do that. Stick with oil. So it's good. And I think that people need to understand this. People need to understand that it's not a realistic solution, that it's fantasy thinking. And I love the term. I love the key. I love the turn of phrase. But the media latched onto that, and they're saying that Danielle Smith is claiming environmental thinking is fantasy thinking and so on and so forth. But I think she's 100% right. Holly Doan is reporting on the environment minister, and he backs down on further trying to impose federal regulations on the province after having lost the most recent legal battle. Environment minister promises federal regulators will not step into provincial jurisdictions on impact assessments. Further legal challenges are a waste of time. Don't bother bringing a legal assessment. We're not gonna do that. So it's a waste of time to bring anything against us. It's interesting. We'll see. I'll be shocked if they don't try and continue to infringe, because it seems like they're not interested in the actual laws of the country. They're just interested in getting their agenda passed. Honestly, it doesn't seem like they are. If they were interested in the laws of the country, they wouldn't have been able to do the COVID lockdowns. They wouldn't have been able to silence people. They wouldn't have been able to force vaccines. Period. Like that is antithetical to a lot of our inherent charter rights, or what people thought were our charter rights at one point when the charter mattered. Disclosed TV is announcing this. The true cost of fueling an electric vehicle, including excess charging costs and subsidies, is equal to $17.33 per gallon of gasoline, a new analysis has found. So it's pretty expensive. And it, again, is a situation where not only is the materials needed for the batteries rare and gotten from places around the world that aren't North America, right? And with labor that's just terrible, that most people would definitely disagree with. Not only that, and not only do we not have enough of it, but in addition to all of that, the cost to fuel this thing with electricity is very, very high comparative to a gas vehicle. I'm telling you, a gasoline car with a Tesla auto drive system, like a Tesla computerized brain, that'd sell like hotcakes. A Stanley Meyer car with a Tesla brain, man, because it produces energy. It doesn't just use the energy stored, right? It produces energy itself. So which is true of a gas engine as well. You put a gas in, and it makes the energy on demand to make the car travel down the roadway. All right, moving on. Let's talk about ghost contractors and the ArriveCan app scam. I think this is a new scandal, and it goes all the way to the top to Chrystia Freeland. Here's Stephanie Kuzy, and she says, bombshell testimony from Bottler executives reveal that multiple government departments are using ghost contracts to cover up their corrupt criminal activities. Even Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland is now connected to this scandal. Many higher-up government officials have been mentioned as well. More to come. Follow me for the latest. And hold on a second. Somebody asked, what is a ghost? Yeah, here it is. Rob said, can somebody explain, like I'm 5, how a ghost contractor works? Or explain it like I'm 10. And Michael said, my oldest daughter's fiance is in Ottawa, and he's a student. In October of 2022, he got a co-op from a brand new company in IT who hired a bunch of students, took $9 million from the government. By January 2023, they dissolved the company and filed for bankruptcy. All this time, they didn't do anything. And there's a whole bunch of other explanations, but that's kind of the gist of it. Andy Lee has another one. She says, imagine a company that doesn't exist except to increase commission on every contract they get, right? So that's what a ghost contractor is. And so we're handing out IT contracts, charging the Canadian taxpayer millions of dollars, $54 million for an ArriveCan app that could have cost a couple $100,000 to create. And I think probably the app contractors who were creating it would have told them, like, nobody's going to use this, which is why they did what they did, maybe. But here is some testimony talking about how Chrystia Freeland is involved in this.
Was there any mention of a minister or communication with a minister as to a ministerial decision for this pilot project?
For this pilot project specifically, no, but for the enterprise licenses that were the bigger licenses for the Government of Canada, yes.
Okay. Who, please?
It was Deputy Minister Chrystia Freeland.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Were you consistently communicating with Mr. Firth? Was he your own?
So Chrystia Freeland is at one of the ministers named by these people. Here is further whistleblower testimony, and I think this is just worth listening to understand. The question is in French, and the woman is translating in English, which is why it sounds kind of weird at the beginning. And then the answer is in English. So there's nothing weird about the answer, but I think it's worth it to listen to both. Here we go.
You heard from witnesses?
Oh, too fast. Sorry, everyone. Here we go.
Is that some of the witnesses experienced threats, pressure. Did you experience that type of consequence? Any threats or any pressure? Were you being forced to do certain things? If so, what happened, how, and who exerted the pressure?
Reported the misconduct. There wasn't just the September 2021 misconduct report. We also reported in December 2021, after which the CBSA responded by canceling the project. And they had asked for us to provide the remainder of the work over to them, which we did. And we provided the work in full in February, but they came back in March of 2022 and said that on top of the actual work that we did, we would have to hand over every single note and document and record that we had associated with the project, which was essentially, that would be the records and evidence of the misconduct that we had uncovered, that would include that. And these records should be handed over to Cordix and Dalian as a contractor, even though they were fully aware that we had reported numerous times we have no relationship with Cordix and Dalian. And even if we hypothetically were to have it, why would we hand over reports of evidence to the people who we had reported misconduct against? So in that instance, Diane Daly, who was in charge of the file at the CBSA, she started threatening us in the name of Canada and making demands that we would have to hand over these files and giving us timelines of, I believe, like 24 hours. So we were threatened in the name of Canada.
Pretty wild. Right? To be threatened in the name of Canada, you'll hand over these files to the people who you reported misconduct against, period. Right? Here's Andy Lee again. Conservative Michael Barrett asks ArriveCan whistleblowers if they have any evidence of identity theft or fraud. We have records of Mr. Firth and his associates promising different kinds of influence, promising government contracts, and they all request commissions for it. Here we go.
Have any evidence related to identity theft?
Yes, we do.
And are you able to provide that evidence to the committee?
Yes.
Okay. And is it in written form? Is it in printed form?
Well, identity theft is it's a two-step basically offense, and by all means, I'm not a lawyer, but it's a two-step offense which includes forgery and using identities to receive benefits. Okay. And this is exactly what happened in our case.
Okay. With respect to the criminal code offense of fraud on government, what evidence can you provide with respect to fraudulent resumes or fraudulent billings?
Well, fraud on the government particularly entitles individuals who, includes individuals who promise or pretend, they claim or pretend to have some sort of influence with the government, and they claim compensation for it. And this, we have, a big record of Mr. Firth and also his associates promising different kinds of influence, promising contracts, promising, opening doors and very specific things, and they all request commissions for it.
Sorry, if I quickly.
So pretty incredible. They're requesting commissions for passing on government contractors through identity theft and fraud is kind of getting paid on both ends. Like you're creating, say you create an identity, say like me, Mark, I create Mark II, right? And we'll just, to keep it easy, we'll keep it Mark II. But Mark II now gets a salary, and Mark II gets benefits of maybe another government contract or something to that effect. And for referring Mark II, I get a commission. Mark, gets money on the front end, and Mark II gets money on the back end, the further government contracts and things like that. That's what they're implying, right? And I don't know if Mark II is just another entity that me, Mark, controls, or if Mark II is like my brother or my cousin or my dad, right? Or another trusted inner circle person, right? Who knows? But one way or the other, or maybe even like Blagojevich was trying to sell this asset that he's got. So in addition, potentially, I've got this commission from you, and then the Mark II entity could be somebody paying me to get access to that government contract, maybe even to genuinely provide service, right? Genuinely provide some kind of product to the government, but maybe not, right? Who knows? $11 million of unknown, who knows what we paid for, is at least one of these ghost contractor companies, right? At least one. So that's a Mark II entity, right? A Mark II entity. I'm glad you know what I'm talking about. Michael again says, oh yeah, it was just in the wrong place. I thought, where is that tweet? I had to go re-find it again because I wanted to explain what a ghost contractor was because it was kind of integral to the whole point. Anyway, it's pretty wild because Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful